Now, if we look at these two side-by-side slow motions here, look at how the right arm moves into impact. One on the left is how 99% of golfers move their right arm, and the 1% here with the tour players, how they move it going through the golf ball. Look at the difference there. So that difference is ultimately compressed strikes, staying down, turning through the golf ball on the 1%, and then on, of course, the 99%, early extension, terrible strikes, no power. The reasoning why that is because the right arm is staying bent in the 1% and it's straightening in the 99%. So why is that straightening of the right arm so bad, but then keeping it bent so good? So when we straighten that right arm, coming into the golf ball, what we've got to know from a basic sense there, if we're straightening it as we are getting to impact or approaching impact like a lot of golfers do, we're lengthening the swing arc. So the swing arc is getting, let's say, more deep into the ground when we do that. So the radius of swing, more down. So that's where a lot of golfers can just straight up chunk it. But what we would see, let's say a lot of good players who do that, they would make up for it via backing their body out the way to create that space to be able to move through and hit the golf ball solidly. So you start to see players who straighten that right arm, like the 99%, they would develop early extension, pop out the shot. And that's where you're at the mercy of your timing of that motion to be able to be successful. If you don't quite do it enough, you're going to again fat it or just hit it off the hosel, because again, if you straighten up at the wrong point to push the club on the outside of the ball line, you're hitting the hosel first. So that's a terrible thing. You would stall out your rotation. You can't keep turning, otherwise again you would hit the hosel. So again, your rotation has to stall, pulls the hands and arms more up and in. Not very good. So you're just going to get no control over the club face. It might feel powerful. A lot of old instruction was to punch the ball. You don't want to punch the ball. We don't see any of the best players in the world do it. Well, actually, we probably see a couple, but we want to copy what the mass do in an easy way. So that's why right arm staying bent is so good of a thing, and why we only really see the 1% of golfers do it, because again, we get taught quite often the complete opposite. So that's where having that right arm staying bent, you can see, again, what's that doing? That's keeping the swing radius into a place where it's not changing last minute at the bottom of the swing. So you'll be able to hit that ball more solidly. You'll be able to keep the sweet spot control into a good spot, moving through the golf ball nicely without it changing all too much, staying constant. Good strikes more often. Why do you see the top players hit the ball so solidly all the time? Many reasons, but this is one of them, of course, super important one. So when that right arm is staying bent, you've got to keep the body down to be able to get to that golf ball. So you have to stay down. Now, we would see the right arm straighten after impact, but we want it to be bent at the point and just before. Super important. Keeps you down, keeps you turning through the golf ball. And again, it's just going to be more powerful away, and you can see what that's going to do to shaft lean. It's just going to get that leaning forward, get you compressing it, get that body moving better, keeping that right arm more bent. So how are we going to train this into a golfer who has never done this properly before in their life? Now, and how that is with drills, and we're going to get into some brilliant drills on how to train this properly, but just trying to keep the right arm bent on its own will be pretty unsuccessful unless we understand exactly how that right arm stays bent. So how that right arm stays bent is using the bends of your body in the downswing correctly. That sounds weird, doesn't it? Using the bends of your body. So what do I mean by that? I mean, as you're coming down in, let's say, the start of the downswing, what happens with the best players in the world? They will, in regard to their bends of their body, they will start to have forward flexion, so forward bend, where their chest will get a little bit lower to the ground, their left hip goes back. Get into more forward bend, forward flexion. At the same time, they start to add in a little bit of trail side bend, a little bit. Some players more. Recent Open champion Ryan Fox does a lot of it, but a little bit of that also blends in there. So a little bit of right bend and forward bend. If we continue that forward bend and right bend as we're coming into the golf ball, now you can see how it rotates me very well, but you see how this right arm needs to stay bent as a byproduct. It's a byproduct motion. It happens because of good forward bend and right bend at the same time. Look what happens to the club shaft as well as we bend forward and slightly right at the same time. The shaft shallows because a lot of golfers who get steep, they have to stand up to shallow it later. They're going to get that straight right arm, all the bad stuff we talked about. So we have got to, okay, now how are we going to train forward bend with right bend at the same time? So again, we don't need to do loads of both. We just need to encourage those motions to happen, and it's going to really get us into some great spots and keep that right arm bent. But that right arm staying bent is just one of the many good things from this. So now we understand those two motions, that they need to be there to be able to create this and create good downswing motion. How do we train that with drills? Okay, so there's a bunch of drills we can generally do for this. The first two are the best, and the next one after that is great to do after you've filled these drills nicely into your swing. So again, this is very unrelated to actually physically keeping that right arm bent. The third drill, a little bit so, but only when you're keeping the body in a good spot. So what I like golfers to do, because this is very much a transition and downswing move, is get up to the top and pause. And what I want them to do from there is do that first motion, a little bit of right side bend, and get that upper body slightly down. Just like that. So repeat that motion. You're going to see how the right arm drives in, club shallows. And what I'd recommend to start off with, don't hit the ball, that motion, and through. So again, up to the top, chest down, right side slightly down. So it's almost like you're trying to slightly move your right shoulder to your right hip. Just there to where you get just into that first half of the downswing, and then turn through. And then as you're easing yourself into hitting some balls with this drill, do it with some foam balls. Foam balls are super good to practice with. It's actually what I do in my net all the time, is foam balls. I don't really ever hit real balls into here. Makes your swing a little bit closer to your practice swing when you do it with a foam ball, because there's less mass. So that means your body's going to have less of a tensing, reacting feel, which is good for us for this. So that's where, just to bridge the gap between practice swing. So again, up to the top, forward bend, a little bit of right bend, just moving through. So you can see the right arm still straightens after impact, but doesn't beforehand. Okay, so again, up to the top, get the feeling. Now, to note, I am still shifting my weight when I'm doing this. I'm not just staying back and going like that. I'm still shifting my weight as I flex that upper body down. You can see what happens as well from there. Hip goes back, naturally. Chest goes down, hip goes back. They happen together. But you can see I'm still shifting my weight. Then just a little motion through. That ball's on its last legs. It's got a crack right in the middle, but because it's a foam ball, doesn't really bother me. So you can see just doing a bunch of that. Then let's say you've done a bunch of those ones. Start to do that in some slower swings. Slower swings coming back. Nice and slow, getting up to the top. Then getting the motion into the shot. You could even do it as a pause drill. Pausing at the top, just like we've been doing. Instead of pausing it again halfway down, try and feel those motions and turn around the corner there. So like I said, it's how the body moves and it bends. We'll keep that right arm bent. Here's another way you can do it. So another way to work on this is the pump drill. This is a really, really good one. I think this one's going to resonate with a lot of you out there for loads of different reasons. So like we know, we want to have that forward bend, chest down, right side, feeling like it's getting closer to the right hip. So we get to shaft parallel. Notice how the club head's going to be behind the hands. Notice how my weight's still forward. Notice how my left hip is a little bit back. And you can see chest is square onto the shot. So chest down, that pushes the left hip back, right shoulder slightly close to the right hip, weight forward. And what we do, we get to this position. If I get myself set up to a golf ball properly, there we go. Get to this position, pump it 2 or 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Super, super good drill. You can see how that's going to keep that right arm bent going through the shots, because we're moving in the downswing of our body very, very well. So, okay, and that's where you'll start to see with the players who straighten their right arm, don't necessarily get these moves as much. So I'm talking about the top players in the world who still successfully play with that motion. But the ones who are more consistent players, they definitely have it in there. So getting in that good body motion pump drill. 1, 2, third one, let's go. So you see I'm just swinging back up a little bit and then through. Absolutely brilliant to train this into a net is awesome, because you're not going to be hitting the ball very far when you do it. You're just nudging it down there. So now you're getting the feeling of blending the forward bend and right bend together as you're turning. Do one more. Now you can graduate to doing the Fleetwood drill. So Tommy Fleetwood drill. So this is a little bit of forcing the right arm into a position we want. But you now know what the body should feel like and what it's meant to do to be able to achieve this naturally. So where does Tommy finish his swing? 3/4 position, right arm still a little bit bent. It's a drill that he did to get his body turning, because like we said, turning is what you need to be able to do this. So just swing through the shot. Doesn't have to be again, full intent. Swing through the shot, keep the right arm bent. all the way through to your finish. Tommy Fleetwood fashion. If your right arm's going to be bent in your finish, it's most likely going to be bent at impact too. Again, great drill to do. In my opinion, only very useful if you know what actually gets that occurring into your golf swing. It's the only real way, in my opinion, to properly get this into your swing. But as you can see, that right arm, it tells you a story more than it is actually a massive causation. So, another Tommy Fleetwood, boom, there we go. So, have a look at your golf swing. See, are you straightening that right arm too early? Most of you will absolutely be doing that. And knowing what do you need to do to be able to get you into that good spot. If you do the pump drill, or you do the first drill and the Tommy Fleetwood drill, you're going to be hitting the ball so much better after a decent amount of time working on your golf swing. So if you enjoyed this video, click that like button if you want more golf instruction. Just like this, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button too to be notified anytime I put out a video.